All right. Hey, this is Brooke Drum at Printrbot.com with Printrbot Live. Live on Facebook, and later, not live on YouTube. So, welcome. I want to start this show right by saying happy birthday to my grandma. It is her 95th birthday today. That's right, 95 years young. She's still driving, in great health. In fact, you may know Dave's my brother-in-law. He does a lot of things around here, but he is also grandma's. Well, you're doing dinner tonight at your place, right? Yeah, so I get to go to Dave's for dinner, celebrate grandma's birthday. She just rolled into town today, lives down on Walnut Creek, so I'm pretty excited about having grandma here. And then also my in-laws are here, so David and Leslie. I'm excited about spending time with my in-laws. They're from Oklahoma. And it's pretty cool to be able to see family. So that's the important stuff. So I want you to know that this will be a short show because family comes first. And I have a yard to clean up. We're going to have guests. So anyway, it will be short today because I'll just start off with the elephant in the room, Dave. So this week I have been wrestling with my CNC demons. And you may not have known, but I've been wrestling with those demons for, I don't know, about a month. And it results in all sorts of designs. And I went as far last week to launch, I use that term lightly, the Printrbot benchtop CNC. And I got up the next morning and I had a little bit of a dark cloud over my head. And so I got to work and I almost just took it down that day. And then I woke up the next day and I thought, you know what? It's not what I want. So I pulled it down. So part of Printrbot, the culture here, the company culture, is as the CEO goes, so the company goes sometimes. So I don't really want to apologize, so I'm not going to. But I will tell you that I'm letting it all hang out today and letting you know that that CNC that I built, I used it. I started to refine it a little bit more to get it ready to launch, and I just threw up my hands and thought, you know what, this isn't what I want. So it's on the record now. I screwed up. I designed that CNC, and it was not what I wanted. So I'm not going to talk much about it. I will tell you this, that right here on my computer, I'll even pull it up, I have the answer to all of my solutions. All of the demons that I've wrestled with have now coalesced in a design that I am frankly in love with. And it is made of metal. It's made of metal. It is going to be a kit. It's flat pack. I'm not telling you the price because I don't know. But I will tell you it won't be too high, and it will be modular enough to meet a variety of needs. So the first need that I see is I want to get people interested in CNC. I'm very interested, and I've wanted to, it's been years in the making here at Printrbot to do a CNC for the desktop. And I think I've told you, if you've watched before, we have a CrawlBot, which is a 4x8 sheet of plywood. If you want to use a router to make flat pack furniture or to do CNC projects that are on a kind of a large scale, the CrawlBot's been our go-to for the last couple of years, maybe 3 years, maybe 2 years. I don't know. You know how old that product is? A couple years at least. Yeah, so we're getting down to the end of the CrawlBots. In fact, there are, I think we're making 5 more of those, only 5. And then that's the end of the line for the CrawlBot because that's going to be time to rev it to version 2. So this project is related. So that's the only hint I'm going to give. I don't want to show you, I don't want to make the mistake I did last week. I want to make sure that I love this CNC, that it is everything I wanted to, so you're going to have to wait. So I have been called a nickname by a friend of mine that used to be a senior VP at Intel, Ken Hendren. He was my boss for a while, and the first thing he wanted to do when he had the team at this church that I worked at, he got this team together and he wanted to get to know everybody. And we went on a retreat, and he took a little walk with me, and he said, "Brooke, you are shoot, ready, aim." And in other words, he says, I pulled the trigger too quickly without aiming first. And while I was aiming at CNC, I didn't hit the bullseye. So we're going to wait for Brooke to hit the bullseye. So anyway, that's that. But I am excited about what we've come up with, and I've already been cutting parts. When this is over, I'm going to spend a few minutes assembling the first stage to make sure it's ready. So hang in there with me. I think you'll be happy when I'm done. So that's the CNC. The other thing, too, is the printer belt. So at the end of the day today here, we got our new parts on. We did another modification to the printer belt here, and we found our gremlins there. So I'm proud to announce that as soon as I get a fan shroud that doesn't fall off, like it did mid-print for Dave stopped it, but I think my mechanical issues are over finally. So I'm getting pretty excited. That's getting very close. So there's that. All right, a couple of other things that are on my mind, and like I said, I'll keep this pretty short. So there is some buzz on Twitter right now, and it has been maybe going back 2 or 3 days, all week. You've seen some of it. If you don't follow RepRap, you need to look him up on Google. Maybe, Dave, you could throw a link in there. But RepRap goes all the way back to the very beginning of RepRap. Adrian Boyer was the professor at Bath University in the UK that really started the RepRap movement. It was a 3D printer that he got people together, and he's great on Twitter, by the way. You should follow Adrian. And if you appreciate what he's done, let him know. But Adrian gathered a bunch of people together that were involved in this project, whether it was firmware or hardware, some of the software. It's really crazy to look at this picture that he put, or I think RepRap posted it. So Rich is in the UK as well. And it was Joseph Prussia, Rich was there, Adrian, and a whole bunch of people that were involved in that project. Well, so Rich is considering, I'll put it lightly, because I'm going to leave it to him to let you know what the plans are, but he's a neutral community member that has been blogging for years now. Since the beginning. He predates me. And I was a little late to the party, maybe a year later, 2 years later at the most. But anyway, so he has been blogging about the RepRap movement and been involved and knows the people that are there. So whether it's him, Knophead, Prussia, there's a lot of people that saw the Print the Legend movie. And I do recommend you watch that if you have Netflix. Look up Print the Legend, and it's a story really about Bree Pettis at MakerBot and Max, can't pronounce his last name, at Formlabs. And I'm friends with both those guys, but, like acquaintances. We've spent a little bit of time together at shows and stuff. And they're very different people. And the movie kind of represents these two camps of a guy that's out to conquer the world, and in some ways kind of did. I mean, the company, MakerBot, sold for $600 million to Stratasys. Well, it's a long and sordid history with MakerBot, and they're still around. They've, basically laid off most of their staff and moved to China, and Stratasys stock has done not well, and I think they even drugged the company down a little bit due to some problems. But for the RepRap movement, Bree represented somebody that started out in the right place, and I'll give Zach Hoken the credit for that. And I'm forgetting the name of the third guy. Met him too. But anyway, Zach is a cool guy. He was like the hardware guy, the really enthusiastic guy. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is there was a movie made called Print the Legend that I don't think it attempted to be the documentary to cover all of it's just too broad. But it did follow Max and Bree on their rise. And, Formlabs is still around. And so it's a fun movie to watch. And if you want to know, I relate to so much of that movie because, all of us that have started 3D printing companies in about the same time went through a lot of the pain that they went through, the struggle, the excitement, and all that. But now we're 6 years later. Well, the landscape, the business has changed significantly. So China has come in. Expectations were way too high, media hype, fell, people became disappointed, disenchanted, media specifically. And so the market was really high, and I couldn't make enough printers, you know, and we had 35 people, and now it's fallen really, really low, and sales are down. The dream of having a printer in every house has really been unrealized. Now, I'm not saying that that won't happen, but there is an untold story that is out there, and that is the open source hardware community, the RepRap folks. So we were almost completely, I think maybe completely devoid of mention in that movie, Print the Legend. So when I saw it, I was at one of the premieres and got to hang out with Max afterwards. Dave, you were there too, weren't you? Yeah, we went to the party together. Huh?
I nodded off during the movie, but
He fell asleep during the movie.
I enjoyed the party though.
Oh, the party was great. Anyway, so we got to hang out with Max and his team. Great team. But my point is, I think there was one mention of Printrbot, and it wasn't even in words. I think it was a magazine cover on Make, and you could like find my printer. I felt like Mike Wazowski, you know, I'm on TV! Because I was like covered with the title or whatever. But there's so many great people and great stories that are out there in our community. And so I want you to get on Twitter and give a shout out to RepRap and Adrian and others. Prusha even showed up in the thread and said, hey, we got to get this movie made for RepRaps. And so as Rich is, well, going back to a couple of years ago, I had the harebrained idea that I was going to make the movie. And I met with Matthew Griffin, who used to work at MakerBot. He was there from the beginning. He ended up working at Adafruit in customer service, and now he's working at Ultimaker, a great guy. And Matt is a writer and a real, he's an artist. And he just has a way with words, and he loves story. And so me and him would get together at the Maker Faire New York or whatever, and we'd talk about this RepRap movie. I even got so excited I recorded, what ended up not being a Kickstarter, but I thought, I'm going to try to get the community excited. Some of you might remember it. But, you know, the timing was wrong. Well, I think the timing is good right now because the story arc of 3D printing and RepRap has really kind of matured. And here's what I mean. We've had the highest high, and I think we've seen the lowest lows, and I think we're on a recovery now. So there's still excitement. It's just, now it's real. It's 3D printing. We know what it's good for. We know that you can't go to Walmart and buy a 3D printer. We know that 3D printing is hard and needs to get easier. And so, you know, I've really wanted to make a printer that is usable by a regular consumer, and I think I've gotten it about as close as anybody, maybe closer, with the Simple Pro. There's still things about it that are a learning curve. You know, you got to figure out how to put the filament in and so on. But we have a touch screen, and you can use it with your phone, and it's very modern feeling. And you know, my wife and kids have used it without any help. So that's a big step forward. And there's other companies that are doing that. You've seen some touch screens now appear on printers. Wi-Fi is starting to be a must-have. Gina at Octoprint, she wrote Octoprint. She's been drug into the thread too, and there's a bunch of other, you know, like Joel Telling, I think, Maker Muse. There's a bunch of bloggers out there that have kind of been pulled in to try to get this community excited about the idea of making a RepRap movie. So I fully endorse this, and I just wanted to tell you that it's kind of the rumblings are happening right now, and we're hoping that we can put legs to it. Now, I suspect that it will be, you know, an Indiegogo or Kickstarter or something like that. I'll be as involved as they want me to be. One problem with being a CEO of one of the recognizable brands is, you know, anything I say, a certain amount of people will not trust because I have biased viewpoints, which is totally true. You know, some people might misinterpret something I do as, you know, trying to promote myself or profit or whatever. So I'll stay in the background as much as I need to. But I am sure an enthusiast, and so I hope to get involved on the level of being somebody that was there and played a part. And you know, but it's not about Printrbot or any one brand. It's really about the people in the community, and I think there's some wonderful stories to tell. So I'm excited about that, kind of getting fired up again. I reserved the domain RepRap the movie, and then it's been 2 years now, so it's lapsed, and so somebody else is going to have to get the domain. But I did want to tell you about that and just see what you can find out about it if you're excited about that, or if you would support, if you'd be somebody that would support that with money so Rich could get this made. Be ready for that because I think it's coming. Now, a related thing that's on my radar is Midwest RepRap Festival. Now, I've been back and forth on that. I typically am, me and Dave were talking about this. Sometimes I sign up for events, and I'm really excited at the moment I sign up. And then I'm like, I don't know if I want to go. Oh, man, why did I sign up for that? But I will tell you, in part because of the excitement of this movie, and plus we have some products to show. And I just love the RepRap community. There is a Midwest RepRap Festival. Dave, would you Google that and put a link to it? It's in, is it Indiana? Ohio? Indiana. I forget where it is. I know you have to either fly into Chicago. I think I flew into Toledo. Indiana. Yeah, I flew into Ohio. Anyway, it's coming up, and I'll commit. I'll buy the ticket. I'll be there. Because really, it's just kind of like a party to celebrate RepRap and see what everybody's doing, and everybody shows off their hardware. And it's not a consumer show at all. It's, you know, you can go for free. But if you're anywhere in the area around that festival, what's the date? Do you know? I guess I better put it on my calendar. March 23rd. Okay. So the 23rd through the 25th, Friday through Sunday. So if you're in the area and you want to meet some great RepRap folk, show up for that. I'm sure there'll be some buzz about the movie. Joseph Prusha usually comes every year. That's when I saw him last. There's a lot of prominent people that it's kind of wild that so many of the RepRap, you know, like influential dudes are there at that show. And it's just in the middle of nowhere. It's beautiful. It's actually put on by See Me CNC. Great guys. They make, they're known for a Delta printer. They made the Part Daddy, that really big 14-foot tall printer that's at Maker Fairs. Maker Fairs. But they have their factory, you know, their shop or whatever, there in that same town, and so it's at the fairgrounds. So anyway, I'm getting a little bit excited about seeing some of those guys, so I wanted to mention that. Now, I know that a lot of you guys are far, far away, but the last event I wanted to mention was on February 24th, right here at Printrbot. We're having a one-day, I think it's going to go like 3 or 4 hours, teacher training. So I wanted you guys to know that I will be recording that training. I'll have to be ready for it, so it's kind of a forcing factor. I got to be prepared for, you know, a dozen or so, maybe 20. I think we're going to cap it at 20 people are going to be in here in the shop. Teachers from a local area to just train them and educate them about 3D printing in general, and then also we'll get into a little bit of design, and just I want to listen to them too to see what the needs of our teachers. So real grassroots. It's totally free, but you'll have to sign up if you're in the area and want to come to that. You'll have to contact Heather. There's actually a newsletter that went out. So anyway, you're going to have to just, on Twitter, you're going to have to bug me or something because I'll have to, I'm not going to give out her email address. There's like an education email address. I don't know what it is. That's hilarious. Do you know what it is?
I'm guessing it's
Educational sales at Printrbot. Could you check that out?
I mean, I know that exists.
Okay.
That's a problem.
Educational sales at Printrbot.com. Anyway, so if you want to inquire, you can inquire there unless I find out otherwise from Dave. But anyway, so I'm excited about being with people, teachers, and that is pretty much it. That's all I wanted to tell you about today. I want to keep it short. It's almost 5. Dave, are there any questions that came up?
One, will the Smalls kit be sold again?
So I have no plans to sell the Smalls kit again. Really what the Smalls was about was me, again, indulging something that I wanted. While I have tons and tons of parts that I could make those, that price point was painful for me, actually. You know, sometimes I'll do that. I'll launch something that I find the right price, but it ends up not being the right margin. And so some of those projects for me, while I may have some fans out there that like those printers, I told you about the market, right? I have to focus on what keeps the company alive. So we are focusing on the Simple Pro, and the printer belt will be the next focus, as well as this CNC project that I'll reveal probably next week to finally, when it's real and made in metal and you can see it work. But not until that happens. So anyway, those are the three. The CrawlBot, like I said, there's a few for sale, but that's going to be part of this project. So I think in a couple of weeks here we'll have our main focuses and just clearing the deck, saying no to a lot of things. I love the quote. It was in the Steve Jobs book. It's not what you say yes to as a company, it's what you say no to. And there are so many distractions here. And look at me. You've seen me. I'm a mess with projects and like shiny objects everywhere. So really want to get down to core business, a couple of great printers, a couple of great CNCs. So that's what my focus is on. What else?
I think would I be able to order some parts from the Plus that are listed on the site, primarily linear rails and carriages, which also made me think, well, anybody looking for linear rails in general, if you've got maybe some advice for people looking.
Yeah. So I sold the the Printrbot Plus bare bones NOS kit. In other words, it was new old stock that I had laying around that I wanted to get rid of. I got rid of it for a song. One of the ways that I'm able to sell some of that stuff so cheap is I don't put everything in there. I leave it up to people that are building to kind of take the last stock that I have and put it together themselves. Well, one of the problems with that kit was that you need linear rails. You got to source your own linear rails. And so I have a bunch of people asking me, I need rails, I need rails. Well, I was out of those rails quite a while ago, and I don't have them. I have like little short rails left. That won't help you. So you will have to source those yourself now, and the carriages. Now, there's Chinese companies that basically take the standard profile, like if you took a linear rail and sliced it and looked down at the profile of how that's made, that profile is extremely common. Highwind is one of the companies that makes that rail. In fact, when you go to China for bars, there's all levels of quality. There's absolute and total crap, and it's so cheap, you're like, why is this so cheap? Well, it's cheap because when you get it, it's crap, basically. But then you come up, you can find some companies that make good stuff, and that's what we did. But when I ordered from China, we're talking about thousands and thousands of bars, and when they're out, they're out. You got to wait 3 months for a ship to bring it over, and you got to make a big order. Well, I don't have a big order to make on those lengths anymore, so it's gone. In fact, I think there's one plus in this whole building. I think that's right. There might be two. I'd have to put one together for there to be two. There's very few parts left here. I mean, that printer is now discontinued. So, not because it was bad, but because we just have to move on. We have the Plus Pro, and there might be some new news about another printer someday soon. But I don't have the bars, and I'm sorry, but those are a very common profile that you can find. You have to get onto Google and search. They're used by a lot of people. In fact, I ran across Dave the other day. Somebody was asking online for some bars, and he very quickly was able to find a company that sold them. I think it was, what was the name of that company? Yeah, Anaheim Automation. They had, I don't even know if they're the right length, but one thing with my printers is I usually design for a specific build volume, and that translates into a different length of bar that is almost never, actually I'll just say never, a stock length. So when I order linear rails, I'm able to order at a custom length, and they make them for me. So it does create a problem. Going forward, I've rethought this a little bit because I really like the idea of the parts for my printers being readily available anywhere. And I say anywhere, like on the market, not anywhere, but Amazon or with somebody like Anaheim, and they make stock lengths, and typically it's like 200, 250, 300, that kind of thing. So moving forward, I'm a little more sensitive to that, so that if I do discontinue a model and have NOS kits out again, but even if somebody wants to replace their bars or upgrade them or something, linear rail, I like to sell stuff that's on the market, not obscure stuff. I don't get into the proprietary stuff. I try to use off-the-shelf parts. So going forward, I'll make a better decision, but right now you're going to have to probably order some bars that are too long and cut them. And you have to cut them with, you can't cut them with just anything. You got to have like a grinding disc to cut them. So there is a bit of pain involved there, but I don't have those bars. You got anything else? One more.
I'm using a 1mm nozzle on my Simple Pro. My retractions are very slow.
So on the Simple Pro, wow, he's using a 1mm nozzle on the Simple Pro. Well, look at that. So that tells me he's probably using the G-code upload in the cloud, and he's not getting a thumbnail. He's just moving the file over to the printer. And if it's a 1mm nozzle, yeah, there are some settings on, oh man, now I'm remembering. So the Simple Pro runs not Marlin for the firmware, but TinyG, and it's actually called G2 Core. So if you Google G2 Core, you'll see some very technical language about how that communicates and what G-codes work. I'd have to check, but as far as I know, the extrusion, it's quite different than Marlin. It's not just like a speed that you can dial in. So I'll have to, if you could send me an email about that, Dave, just send me a quick email with a question, and I'll try to respond on Twitter. Really, I'm going to have to consult Rob, who wrote the firmware, to ask him. But I believe there's it's like an M code, basically. But it's a little bit of code that you can put in your starting file. And there may be information on this on the G2 Core wiki. If you just Google TinyG, G2 Core, there's a wiki that really has some great information. And we do have a help document on our website about how you can use the G2 board, the Printrbot G2, with the TinyG firmware to get it to work at different speeds of movement in X, Y, and Z. I don't remember the retraction off the top of my head, but I'm sure, obviously, it's a 3D printing board, so that's a variable that you should be able to change in the starting G code, and then you'll be fine. So I'll try to follow up later. It's not on the tip of my tongue. I don't even know if I ever knew it, but I'll find out. All right, no other questions? All right, so thanks, guys. Sorry it's short today. Sorry the CNC that was there last week is no longer there, but I think good things are coming. Welcome to the world of Brooke. But have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you next week.